Hello. So thank you and welcome to another installment of Unscathed with Tombra. I've got a brilliant, absolutely phenomenal guest today, Sandra Nwachukwu. I'm sure that when you hear her story also, you would know why I say she's phenomenal. She's got an unbelievable story of just triumph amidst incredible adversity, and I can't wait for her to share it with you. So yeah, welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are? Just introduce yourself to our awesome audience.
Hi, I'm Sandra Nwachukwu. I am a real estate commercial chartered surveyor. I'm a massive foodie. And my favorite pastime is dance. Although I'm getting a little bit too old for that, the bones can't handle it anymore. But so I mentor inner school students who are taking their A level in terms of going into uni, and I also do road tours, just speaking to students about a career in commercial real estate. So yeah, that's me.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes, it all happened, it's about 20 years ago.
Oh, wow. It's been 20 years already?
I think it has been 20 years already.
Yes.
It has been 20 years, hasn't it? Yes. So I started out as a normal student, excited about getting into the University of Port Harcourt, and, started my studies there, studying a degree in microbiology. And I had an amazing time, I made a lot of friends, yourself included.
Yeah.
And you know what? I put my head down over the course of, I think it was 4 or 5 years, just trying to get that degree. Really, really excited because I was in line to get in a 2-1. And, I was really excited about what the future held. Just for me to get to my final year in university, and it just all came tumbling down around me. My world absolutely fell apart. Firstly, during the final, I think it was verification and all of that, it happened that my secondary school made a mistake in my my WIAC. Which
for those people who don't know what WIAC is probably the equivalent of our GCSEs over here in the UK. So there's a set of exams that you take that helps, that kind of supports your application into getting into a higher institution.
Yeah, thanks. So as I was saying, there was a mistake with my WIAC scores, which I was told to go and rectify. So went back to my secondary school and wrote me a letter admitting to the mistake and everything, and rectified the scores. And I was told to retake a subject, I think it was in maths, which I did, with a letter from the school, and I thought everything was okay. Anyways, at the end of my degree, getting to graduation, this is really taking me back. Getting to graduation, I had this lecturer who was very adamant that what I had submitted and everything, including what the secondary school had submitted, was not going to pass, that it didn't hold water, and so I was not going to graduate. That for me was where the bottom fell out.
So let us kind of unpack that, because I'm conscious that I know the story, but I want to make sure that my audience are able to follow it.
Okay.
So basically, what Sandra is saying is she got to the final. So check this: she got to final year of a 4-year degree. And mind you, back then in Nigeria,
5-year degree with a few strikes in between.
Mind you, back then in Nigeria, we used to have, university strikes. We weren't that great, where lecturers will, go on strike, and so that contributed to the degree. That would usually contribute to the degree being longer. So in Nigeria's case, what she's saying is that she was in university for 5 years instead of 4 years. So she's done 5 years of university. She's gone through the ropes. She's written every exam. She's written every coursework that was thrown at her. She's done everything.
All night studying.
All night studying. She's done everything that you can imagine that somebody in university has to do. The work that they've had to put up with. And as she said, she was also en route to get a second-class upper degree. So this is not just, someone who's put in the work. This is someone who's put in extra work to go over and beyond, to come above, to excel at her studies. She then gets to the end and then is now told that, look, by the way, there was a problem with your entrance result through no fault of her own. There was a problem with your entrance exams whilst you're coming into university. So, go on.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, that was when the bottom fell out. I could not believe it. I thought they were joking. I just thought this is unreal. This is a joke. This cannot be happening. And I think it was even given that the school had admitted that they had gotten it wrong. And, my head of department saying to me, okay, this is how you rectify it and it's fine. So getting to that point where I've done all the coursework, I've done all the assignments, I've done all the studying, I've paid, the fees, I've paid everything. I did my dissertation. Really excited about getting a 2-1 and to be hit with that news at the very end of 5 hard, long years.
If I hear you wondering how that is possible, trust me, even us watching back then were in shock to even think that it was possible, but it actually did happen. It happened to Adure. But go on, Adure.
And I think even more painful was everyone had signed off on it. My head of department, the school, I think it was the school verification exam board, but this one lecturer refused. Totally adamant. I went there. I went so many times. I went with my mom. I cried in front of him, everything. And he was adamant that it wasn't going to happen. And I can remember going back home and on the day of graduation, speaking to a couple of people, and everyone was saying to me, you've worked hard for this. Come attend your graduation. But I physically could not be there because I thought, what? These are my friends, these are my family that we all went through this journey together. And then getting there for me to sit and watch everyone collect a certificate. And I didn't. That was one of the most heart-wrenching things I couldn't go through. I can remember that day of graduation. I cried from when I woke up in the morning till I can't remember going to sleep. I cried every single hour of the day. I can remember my mom trying to console me. I was inconsolable, absolutely shattered. I was so shattered. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know what was in front of me. And, even after graduation, tried, I think it was for about a year or something to get the certificate, and it didn't just happen. And mom just thought, what, I've had enough. I'd send you to London. So get to London, I think it was about 16 years ago. Arrived in this country with nothing. No certificate, no future plans. I just got here, and for me it was more like, okay, how do I proceed? What's next?
And just to elaborate on this a little bit, so this would have been the time where, a lot of your mates also came to London, and
Absolutely.
they came and they were, trying to get jobs that were based on what they'd studied in school.
Yeah.
And you came, a bit empty in a sense.
Yeah, I did. I came absolutely empty. I could remember I had a few friends who were, who came around the same time I came, who were looking for, professional jobs based on, their degree and their certificate. I had other couple of friends who were going forward to do their masters, based off their undergraduate degree. And I was there with absolutely nothing, not knowing where to start. I couldn't get a professional job because I didn't have undergraduate degree.
And the thing as well is that you had the knowledge because you were microbiologists, but just not on paper.
Not the paper. Not the paper to say you're a microbiologist. I had done every single thing to the very end, the very last. I defended my dissertation and everything. I did everything. And to tell you I wasn't dejected, or to tell you I wasn't, I wasn't not clinical depressed, but I was down in the dumps. I did not see what the future held for me. I thought that was the end of
that was everything for you.
That was everything for me.
Yeah.
This is me, having done all of that work
and still not.
The rug being pulled from underneath you. And because all your plans, think about it, all our plans were, okay, once I graduate, then I do this, I'll look for a job and I'll do this. That was all our plans. That's all we had. And imagine that being taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
What's plan B?
What's plan B?
And so I had to get a job. I couldn't get a professional job. So I can remember.
Before we go into the job, how did that affect you from I think I know the answer, but I would like you to elaborate. How did that affect you from a confidence point of view?
Oh, my confidence was -0. Absolutely -0. It was I think I didn't speak to people. My friends I knew who were in the country, I didn't speak to them for a while. Because for me it was more like they were going on with their lives and I was stuck in this rut, which I didn't see how I could get out of. And so I was just in my room day in, day out, crying, speaking to my mom, speaking to my siblings, just not knowing how to move forward. And the first thing I had to do was get a job, but I couldn't get a professional job like my contemporaries were doing. And so I remember getting a job in a phone shop. And I remember the first day I started, I thought, wow, this is me. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
But there's nothing wrong with
what you.
But that wasn't the plan. That wasn't what I worked 5 and some years for. That wasn't my plan from the start. So getting into that job, I can remember when you talked about my confidence level. I can remember doing that job, and one of my greatest fear was being asked what I did.
Just like when you would go out and you went with a friend, what do you do? Yeah.
One of my greatest fears, going out, being among my contemporaries who were all doing well in their jobs and being asked, oh, what do you do? That was one of my greatest fears, which, like I said, my confidence was below 0. And, I can remember just going, I work for a mobile phone company, but I didn't really say what I did. I just kind of
deliberately vague.
quite vague and quite high level, because for me, even, telling people, for me, it was more like, it always took me back to, well, you could have been this. So it was always a reminder for me. So I never liked talking about it. I never liked talking about what I did, but I plowed on. I think I did that for 2 years. And I remember, I spoke to you actually. I remember saying that I couldn't do this any longer. I couldn't do this. I know that I know that what I have in me is a bit more. What I have to give is a bit more.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So just to ask you a quick question, I want to, so there is the point which a lot of people make around, something that's happened to you. A lot of times it's very difficult for people to move past it. They always, at times, it almost feels like, what, I cannot move past it until there's some sort of retribution as to what was done against me. Or how did you, was there a moment of decision? I think you mentioned, your mom said, come to London. Was there a moment of decision where you thought, you know what, we can start again? How about you go to London? How did that decision come about?
In terms of coming to London, or in
terms of coming to London?
I think
what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times, a lot of people, there's a temptation to stay stuck there, to keep fighting. You have, people who are in litigation processes for maybe 16, 17 years. They're fighting that same thing. We must get this. It takes a sort of different mindset and a different perspective to be able to say, well, this didn't quite go well. However, I'm going to try and chase a different path. So what I'm trying to explore is, how did you or perhaps your mom, with her help, get to that point?
Yeah, I think for me is, when I looked at the whole picture, it was overwhelming. I couldn't figure out how I would get out of it. And so what I did was, I looked at what was right in front of me in terms of the little steps. So in terms of getting to London, it was more like, saying to my mom, okay, you know what, I've got a British passport. The next step for me was that little progress of, okay, let me get out of this environment, because being in this environment is making me sink deeper. So, Mom, let me get out of this environment. That was I didn't know what was after getting out of the environment. For me, it was that
just that little step of progress.
Of going, let me get out of this environment. So I did that. And then when I got here, the next step was, okay, you've got to get some sort of job. So I didn't know what was in front of me, but what was before me was the next step of a job.
Okay.
Right? And so I went and I got myself a job.
Okay. So what were the some moments of awareness for you around it? So you're in London, you've left Nigeria, you're in London, you are working now in a phone shop, as you said. You have awkward moments where you go out and the conversation kind of goes towards, what do you do? And you try and dodge it. What were some moments of awareness for you that you kind of thought, I've got to do the next thing? And what was the next thing?
Okay, my first moment of awareness was the graduation day, where I couldn't go and I cried all day. I think for me, I made a decision then and then. I can remember my mom holding me, and I said to her, I said, I will come back and I would give you more than this. Wow. This isn't the end. And when I said that, I didn't see the way through that, but I knew that one day I would give. So that was that little fire, that little spark, knowing that I would come one day and give my mom more than that, because she went through what I went through, Imagine her paying all the fees and all of that.
Mhm.
So I wasn't the only one going through it. She was
Mhm.
going through it as well.
Mhm.
And knowing that she was going through that, I think it hurt me even more because I know what she went through to put us through school. So that was when the little fire, it was a little one, was lit within me. So it was more about focusing on one thing. What if you might not see the whole picture? You might not see how you can get through there or you can achieve that, but it's just holding on to that one thing. So
If your
that for me,
if your mindset isn't defeated, you will find the little spark that you can, a little trail that you can just follow. This is the next thing. Do that. That's the next thing. But if you've got a sort of like a mindset that isn't open to opportunities and you're just so stuck in the past and you're looking back, then you can't go forward, can you?
Yes, no, you can't. And I think for me, it's you would hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom, right? And I did not see a way through. But it's more like when I want to use an analogy, which isn't a good one, but I'll use it anyways. It's when you fall down a well. You have fallen down that well, but it's more like, how do I get out of this? You know, is there a small indentation in the wall? Like, do I scream or do I just sit there and cry?
Ooh, I love that. When you fall down a well. So what do you do when you're in a well? Do you just
I
sit
can't
down
see
there
how to get out of that well.
or do you try and feel your way out to try and, what can I do? Oh, I love that.
Exactly. What can you do?
There's always something you can do, essentially, is what you're saying.
I
There's always
scream. Will I feel for indentation? What do I do? And so for me, it was what is before me. First thing, British passport, go to London. Okay. Secondly, get here, get a job. It might not be the professional job you wanted. It might not be, the dream you had when you started out at university. Get a job, do something. And so I did that. And during my time doing that, what that did for me was I started to learn and understand the system, the way things are done here. I started to meet people and speak to people about what they did, how they did it, where they did it. I started to form networks. And so during that process, it was more like a brewing process in terms of, okay, what is the next step? What is the next step for me? I've always had a fascination with real estate. I've always had that. But from where I was coming from, it wasn't technically a professional job. It was more like a state agency and all of that. But during my 2 years here and speaking to people, I started to understand that actually there's so many professional roles you could get into doing that. But the next step for me was, okay, I want to do real estate. Here you could do a professional certification to become qualified as a mortgage advisor. And so I did that after 2 years being in that role. And I then became a mortgage advisor. And when I did that, so I did that for a year and some, and then we had the crash. And guess what sector was the first to go? Banks. And the mortgage lending industry, that was the first one to go. And it literally dried out. And I thought, wow, okay. Back to square one in a sense.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And so I thought, once that happened, even though I was in that job, I was never satisfied. I always had at the back of my mind, what I had said to my mom.
So you did the course in
Mortgage advisory.
mortgage advisory. So this is just sort of like a short course, was it?
Yeah,
Right?
like a short professional certification. Yeah. So even though I did that and I worked in that industry before the crash, I still had at the back of my mind what I had said to my mother. For her and for myself. And so once the market crashed, I remember walking home once and just saying, I'm going to go back. This was a year before my 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start again, all over again.
And this, remind us again, this was how many years after you would have had your certification and it not been denied you? Probably about 3 years.
No, because it was already 5 years in London.
Wow.
About four and a half years in London, because I did the 2 years at the mobile phone company and then about 2 years as a mortgage advisor. And then I made the decision to go back to university. So that was about 5 years in London, and I think about 2 years. So all in all, it was about 7 years. This whole process was about 7 years.
Wow.
And I decided to go back and study all over again.
Go back to university at age 30 to study all over again after you had the first degree denied. Wow.
So this was at a year before my 30th. So at age 29, I made the decision to go back as an adult student.
And this was born out of that promise, that desire to do this for yourself and do it for your mom also, right?
Yes. Okay. And
so how was the process for you? First day at university, take us back.
It was scary. Once I made that decision, it was one of the scariest decisions I'd ever made. Because on one hand, I saw a lot of my contemporaries moving upwards in their jobs and everything. And even when I had a chat with a few friends, it felt like I was going backwards. But I knew no one could do it for me. I had to do it myself. And, I'm a Christian, so, I can remember that one scripture, which was, I'll give you back the years the cankerworm. And that scripture was one of the things that propelled me, because I thought, okay, it looks to everyone like I'm moving backwards, but for some reason, this promise has never left me. It's something that's been burning deep within me. And so if he has said that, then all I need to do is step in and him. So even though I was scared, even though it was one of the scariest decisions in my life, I think for me, it was more like I had a promise within me, which I had to trust God for. And I had a promise which I had made to my mom and to myself. And those two things, even though everyone around me was saying, why don't you do this other professional course and this and this and this? I knew I had to go back to school. I just knew.
You just had a conviction that
That conviction that I had to do it.
I am going to have a degree. And it's not saying that, you know, a degree necessarily is for everyone.
No,
it's just
exactly.
for you, you
For
know,
me.
particularly as you felt that it was denied you. You
It was
felt
taken away
it was
from me.
taken away from you, especially as you felt that it was taken away from you. You felt that you had to get it back. It was something.
I felt I had to get it back. For me, that was mine. That was, for me, that was my thing. That was what I had to overcome. It could be anything else for anyone. You know, like I said, everyone said to me, oh, but you could, you know, you could get a certification in this, you could do IT, you could do all of that. But for me, I knew I had to go back to school to do it. And so I can remember the first time I walked in after registration at university and I met my classmate, and everyone's like, oh, oh, how old are you? Oh, I'm 18, I'm 19. Oh, how old are you? Oh, I'm 29.
Wow.
And I remember everyone looking at me like, oh, wow, okay.
Wow.
And so, therein began my journey with getting a degree at university. And I think for me, the moments I remember was the summer days spent in the library, you know, whilst the thing is, it's easier when you're doing it with your contemporaries. All of you are in that journey together. You guys are moving. It's much, much harder when you have so many years in front of you to study, and you know, your mates are calling you saying, oh, let's go out to XXX, or let's go on a holiday. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
You can't. You know, and also just to add to this, you kind of did, it was a part-time degree, right?
Yes.
Because you were working in order to be able to, in order to finance this degree as well.
Absolutely. So rather than the 3 years, it took me 4 years.
4 years.
An additional year to do it. Yes.
It's just to wrap people's minds around what you're saying here. You went back to university at age 30. You had to work whilst going to university and to be able to fund your university education. And it was going to be a longer degree, almost as long as the first one, longer than it would have been otherwise if you were not doing it part-time whilst working.
Yes, so you're correct. So I did it part-time because when we had the financial crash, I decided to start a little business. Like I mentioned, you know, I've always had a passion for real estate. So I became a real estate broker whilst I was studying real estate at university. And you're completely right. So it was me doing all of that, going to university, and it was more like 4 years. How on earth would I do that? This is 5 years of being in the UK plus 4 years. So a total span of about 9 years to get to where my contemporaries were when they started, I don't know, about a decade ago. So for me, it was more like, you know, I wasn't looking at everything, because when you look at everything and what's in front of you, sometimes it can get overwhelming. So for me, the next step was, okay, finish your first year, I'm done. Second year, I'm done. Sorry, I can't come for the wedding in south of France. Sorry, I can't go on holiday in Croatia. Sorry, I can't do the cinema. Have to be in the library, day in, day out. You know, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't smooth sailing. It wasn't.
Anyone would imagine that it was. No one would imagine that.
There were days and there were nights where I'm stuck in that library and I'm thinking,
what am I doing?
What am I? Is this my life? The days when I'm stuck in and I'm coming home in the wee hours of the morning and, you know, I'm breaking down, because for me it was more like everyone's gone ahead of me. That's how I felt. and this is me doing this.
And not knowing as well. It's not like, okay, once you do this degree, you will get this this fantastic opportunity. It's waiting for you. There is still that, bit of uncertainty. You know that you're doing something you're passionate about. However, you don't know necessarily that the job is waiting for you when you've then got to commit an extra 5 years or 4 years to doing it.
But in between all of that, there were moments where I knew, as I mentioned, I'm Christian. So there were moments where I knew that God was with me. There were moments that He showed me. It was, for example, I can remember when I started the degree, and I think it was my second semester, my first year, I realized that wasn't really the degree I wanted to do. It was a totally different degree. And I realized that when I went to speak to the head of the department for the degree which I wanted to do, he said to me, we don't think you are qualified with the results that you had. I wish I couldn't show any university degree. So it was like, with this, you didn't do any A level, so you're not qualified to do this, or you didn't do any foundational course, you're not qualified to do this. And I thought, okay, you know what? I might just do this degree and then do a master's in the degree I wanted. And I can remember the end of my first year, I walked into a room to see a lecturer, and I saw a man there, and he said, "Oh, who are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm looking for this lecturer." He was like, "Okay, come out, I'll take you to her." And while he was walking me to her, he said to me, "Tell me about you. What are you studying?" I was like, "I'm studying this, and I wanted to do this, but I might just do this and do a master's." And he was like, "Oh, I've just become the new head of the department for the degree you wanted to study. Speak to the lady and come and see me." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And I went to see him afterwards, and he said, "Okay, what have you done? What were your results from your first semester? And what are your results? What are you aiming for your second semester?" And I told him, and he said, "Okay, don't worry, leave it with me." Next thing I get an email about a week or two later saying, "Yes, from your second year, we've moved you into this course." And for me, it was more like just God reassuring me that
He was with you.
He was with me, but I was taking the right step, and I shouldn't worry, and that trust that I had in Him would come to fruition. And that scripture He had mentioned to me would come to fruition. And so it was little things. It was little things like that. I can tell you of so many moments of my time during university where I kept getting reassurance that I was on the right track. So those were the days and those were the moments that kept me going. And another thing as well, which also helped me, was having the right type of friends and my family around. I had friends who were like, "You can do this." I had friends when days were down, I'd give them a ring, and by the time I'm done with the phone call, I'm good to go. I'm ready to hit the road again. So having people around you as a support base helps a lot. That helped me a lot. I had a very strong support base. I had cheerleaders who were saying to me, "You can do this. You can do this. You might not see the end, but you can do this."
Okay, so what were your results in the end? Like, let's get to the happy side.
Yeah, I came out with first class. So
I hope you're cheering, guys. Unscathed.
So I was able to hand that to my mom and say, "This is it," as I promised. This is it. But not only did I come out with first class, I came out with 2 job offers.
Wow.
even before I graduated, during my last year of graduation, which was an opportunity to work in Tokyo, in Japan, or in London, which is a very nice problem to have.
Oh, nice.
So that was a good result to come out with. Fantastic. At the end of 4 long years.
Yeah. So what key principles then would you, I'm just thinking now, we've heard your story. What are the key things that you would say?
Yeah, but it's not the end of the story, is it?
Oh. Okay, so continue.
It's not the end of the story, is it? Because I came out of university in 2004, and remember that when I started a year before my 30th. I was 29.
Stop. So, wow, you graduated with the first class. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank God. And as I mentioned, I was able to, give my mom that certificate to say, as promised, this is it. And so, from there, it just became a roller coaster, Tambra. It was
a roller coaster of a good kind.
Absolute roller coaster. It was more like, okay, you've done the work now. Now is your time to enjoy the ride. Because I came out, even before I graduated, with 2 job offers with my current company. One to work in their offices in Tokyo, Japan, or to work at the offices in London here. And due to being closer to family and all of that, I chose to work in London here. And I started from the very bottom. I started as a graduate surveyor. So imagine this, I was 33 at that time, and I became a graduate alongside individuals who were 21, 22. I was over a decade older than them. But the one thing which, when I speak to students at the moment, and especially mature students gravitate towards me, and I speak to and I guide a number of them, what I say to them is, it's not about looking or about thinking about your age. It's more about, this is what is in front of you. How are you going to do the job? And so, I just knuckled down. I knuckled down. Yes, I was an older graduate, but that's fine. It was an industry I was passionate about, and I just knuckled down, and I just thought, you know what, that's it. And I remember just putting my head down, doing the graduate, process for 2 years, getting qualified as a chartered surveyor. And at that point, it normally takes, to where I am now, it normally takes people at least a minimum of 5-6 years to get to. From when I became a chartered surveyor in 2016, within 2 years, I was getting promoted every single year after I qualified. And in fact, it was so funny, whereby when I can remember my first appraisal after I became chartered, and one of the things I put there was to get promoted. And the head of my team said to me, oh, it's a good ambition to have, but it's never been done.
Wow.
You have to have at least 2 years experience underneath your belt to even be considered for promotion. Guess what? The next year I got promoted.
Yes, baby.
And the next year. And the next. So what would take people a minimum of 5-6 years took me 2 years. That was the acceleration. That was where the word came to fruition, where I'll give you back the years a canker woman did it, because where I am now, I've actually caught up with and surpassed a number of my contemporaries.
Fantastic. That is just such a I'm just like, it feels like I'm hearing the story all over again. I am almost like, this is
it's you know, it's absolutely amazing. It's me going from, like, you know, starting out with not knowing what the future held for me, not having a job, going into a low paid, less professional job, to, you know, earning.
What were some resilience practices that you feel were helpful for you in just becoming unscathed, the unscathed person that you are now?
I'd say focusing on the next step in front of me, just having that tunnel vision of, okay, this is the next step. Forget what else is after the next step, but I need to overcome this step, and just focusing on overcoming that step and the next step and the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Hard work. You know, do not be afraid to push yourself. Do not be afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Love it.
You know, asking for help.
If you need it.
Do not be afraid to ask for help. You know, build a support base. Build a team of people who would encourage you, who would cheer you on, who you could speak to when you're down in the dumps, who can say to you, yes, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. You know, focus, you know, on your lane. Don't look at what or who's doing what on either side of you or around you. You've got a plan. You know what the next step is. Focus on that. Forget about the noise and the waffle and where people are. You know, you're unique. Even within your family, you're unique, meaning that your journey is unique. And it's not who starts first. It's not. But you have to do the journey well. And doing the journey well is not comparing yourself to anybody else, but just focusing on what is in front of you and the goal that you have.
You have set for yourself. I love it. Love it. So how important do you think it is to, you know, own your story? Like now, how do you feel about telling that story of when you were in Uniport and, you know, what happened? Do you, you know, you mentioned before you used to not want anyone to know about that part, but how integral
it feels liberating. It feels that I feel like somebody needs to hear this, even though if it's just one person who, you know, just hears my story and just thinks about, okay, you know what, if she can do that, I can absolutely do that. It's never too late to start. Never too late to start anything you want to. If there's a burning desire, you know, within you to start something or do something or be something, do it now. Start now. It's never too late to start. You know, just take a step. And once you take that step, you find out that it's not as scary as you thought it would be. And once you find out that it's not as scary as you thought it would be, you will take the next step and the next and the next. And before you know it, you'll look back and go, this is how far I've come. So do not be afraid to start. Just go on, do it. Start.
Beautiful. That was really good. Thank you so much, Ajuri. Thank you for joining the show today. This has been...
Thanks for having me. This has been amazing.
Enlightening and eye-opening, and I hope it's brought illumination to some of the minds that are listening to it now. It's never too late to start something, to do something, to be something. I hope you guys take that with you as you continue to build yourselves and become more unscathed every day, or as you continue to stay and live an unscathed life.